Petalheads. I'm at the allotment and I brought an old pair of my underpants. Keep watching to find out why. Unusually for us, it's not rained for about 3 weeks. So, because I'm getting really close to the time when I'm going to be planting loads of things out, I'm making sure my water butts are all full. I'm not forgetting to water those crops that we've had in the ground over winter, which are now starting to put on a new burst of growth now that we're in spring. So here, for example, I'm making sure my elephant garlic, which has been overwintered, gets a really good drink. This end bed was where we had the purple sprouting broccoli, the last of the purple sprouting broccoli. We also had some in a raised bed further down the allotment. But a few days ago, we made a decision and we harvested whatever was left on the plants and we've pulled them out. I'm now just getting the bed ready for the next step, which is going to be, after the brassicas, the purple sprouting broccoli, I'm going to plant potatoes using my really light brilliant soil, RLBS, roots, legumes, brassicas, solanaceae or spuds, using that crop rotation system. Just getting this ready now so we can put spuds in, but first all the weeds have to go. Did anyone else see that section on a recent Gardener's World where the chap with the daffodil obsession, that they were growing them at a show and they were on about clocking? So me and Ruby did, and ever since, she's literally, every time she sees a daffodil, she goes around and makes sure that there's a petal at the top, bang on 12 o'clock, clocking. She just twists it. What has she started? What has Gardener's World started? Seriously, we're running out of daffodils to do it on. It's like, I don't know, it's addictive. You just got to do it. You see a daffodil, you've got to clock it. They do look good though, once they've been clocked. Getting back to weeding that bed that we took the purple sprouting broccoli out of, I found quite a few chive plants that have self-seeded. It's never really happened much for me before that, self-seeded chives. Not sure why, but I'm very grateful that it has this year. So, not the one I've just thrown, that was grass. But the main big plant I'm tackling there, they're chives. So what I'm going to do, I don't want them there, so I'm going to take them out, transplant them into somewhere where I do want them. If you've never grown chives, I can really recommend them because you get double bubble. You get 2 uses out of chive plants. First one, in fact 3 uses. I'm going to widen my net, I'm going to say 3 uses. First one, you get lovely purple flowers that are just nice and pretty. So that's something for you to enjoy. Second reason, those purple flowers are very, very attractive to bees, and you'll notice that you get bees feasting themselves on the flowers when the flowers are open. And the third one is they're actually really, really tasty, and you can use them as a herb. Just snip some onto some food or in a salad, whatever. They're really nice to eat. So because it was a hot, dry day, I didn't want the plants I'd just taken out of the ground to start to wilt and start to die, so I didn't hang around doing this. I went straight from transplanting them to putting them into the final position where I want them to be, which is at the end of one of the long beds. I tried to dig each hole roughly as deep as the plants were when I dug them out, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense and you ever do it for yourself, you'll see the soil marks up your plant. You'll know how deep that plant has been previously before you transplant it. So I'm just making sure I'm planting it at the same depth. Something else I could have done with these chives, just to give them a little helping hand, is give them a bit of a haircut. Grab a fistful of the chives and cut off the top few inches, and then that way there's less plant material for the roots to support. Sometimes when you transplant a plant it can stress it out a little bit, doesn't always like being moved, although to be fair, chives are reasonably robust. In fact, they are robust. They actually are robust. We'll put it this way: if I can grow them successfully, then they must be quite hard. Do you know what I mean? They're like the Chuck Norris of the horticultural world of chives. Like with any transplanting you do, the next thing I did was give them a really good soak. In fact, if I was going to be extra thorough, I could have also watered the ground before I popped these transplanted chive plants in there, but I didn't, so they're getting a good drink now. Back to that end bed where we had the purple sprouting broccoli. So I'm now going to dig out a trench where we can put potatoes into. And in that trench I'm going to line it with stuff which will help the potatoes grow. Now, only because I didn't have any usable compost to hand, either shop bought or homemade, I'm using grass cuttings and bits of dead plant material. Watching this back now and I'm seeing that strip, which, remember, that's just grass cuttings, I'm looking at that and I actually think that looks better than our allotment path, the path that I mowed to get those grass cuttings from. Wow, that looks ace. It looks like a little strip of grass. Anyhow, I'm laying out the potatoes at a reasonable distance apart, and I say reasonable, I'm not going to give you an exact thing, just look on the label. It all depends what variety you grow, really, and you know, and if you squish them up a bit, your spuds are going to be smaller, so it depends what you want. If you want giant potatoes, you leave a huge gap between each seed potato. I'm giving them some water before I start to cover them over. Remember, plants won't grow if your soil's bone dry. Unless you're like a cactus in the desert or something like that. But even then, they've got water, haven't they? They've got water in the soil. They just have an enormous taproot to go down and find it. Now it's time to bury those seed potatoes. The next time I'll mound them up is when the growth starts to come up through the soil. You literally just keep mounding it up around the growth. That way you're going to protect any little potatoes that start to form on the plant. You'll protect them from a couple of things: frost, we can still get frosts at this time of year, and also sunlight. You don't want spuds to turn green. Basically it means that when they're green, they've reacted to the light, there's a chemical that forms in them which gives it that green colour, and it's poisonous and you can't eat them. So mounding them up protects them. The dandelions are coming into flower now, so if you've not got time to fully weed them out root and all, just spend a little bit of time just picking off all the flower heads, and then they don't turn to seed which spread. Whoa, freeze the frame. Right, remember at the very start of this video I told you that I'd brought some underpants up? Well, you're going to find out what I brought them up for very shortly. Keep watching, and don't worry, it's not what you think. I'm really not that kind of channel. Ta-da! I'm going to clean with them. You've got a dirty mind, you have. Honestly, I'm going to clean with them. What do you think I was doing? Filth. Dirty minds, honestly. So what did you get up to over your Easter holiday, Stu? Well, I wiped a pair of underpants all over some glass. It's not what you say, it's the way you say it, really, innit? Because technically I'm not lying. am I? That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm reusing a knackered old pair of undies. All the elastic waste had gone, so rather than throw them, I thought, well, I might as well use them as a cloth. So my undercrackers are doing a fantastic job up at the growing greenhouse at the allotment. The underpants are away for the time being. So I'm repurposing this plant label just to get all the moss and rubbish out of the miniature gutter down the side of the greenhouse that drains into the water butt, which I happen to use to rot roots and weeds in, that kind of thing. So I don't mind the odd little bit of moss going into it. The underpants are back. I tell you what, they've been more useful to me, not as a pair of underpants, than those particular undies were as undies, because they had a bit of a tendency to ride down and they'd leave me feeling vulnerable and exposed. So this is payback, this, for all the times that I used to get a draft, if you know what I mean. Payback. Right then, I'm cleaning plastic bottles that I've snipped the ends off with a pair of scissors. You got to do it carefully though, because the plastic can be quite sharp. And I use them as mini cloches when we plant out crops at the start of the growing season, just to give them a little bit of extra protection. There's literally years worth of plastic bottles there. Some of those bottles are almost like old friends, we've had them that long. Look at that, it's like Jenga for recycled plastic bottles. Using those plastic bottles, I'm now going to plant out some crops into one of our raised beds, and the plastic bottles will just create a little microclimate, give it that helping hand to start off growing well. So down one side of the bed, I'm going to plant 3 red Rudolph broccoli plants. And I've been quite organised this year. I'm ever so proud of myself. I've actually remembered to write the date of sowing on the plastic labels. So the labels told me that these were sown on the 22nd of March. So actually they're only a few weeks old really, and already they've got a couple of sets of true leaves. So not doing too bad there. As they grow, these broccolis will get a fairly decent sized stem, but they'll get some weight on as well as the heads of the broccoli start to form. So as I plant each one, I'm really firming it in well. There's an old man that once told me he will only plant brassicas into ground that he has to break with a crowbar to get the plant, using a crowbar as a dibber. The ground is rock hard solid. I think that's a little bit extreme myself. I've successfully grown all sorts of brassicas in raised beds with relatively loose soil. Speaking of brassicas, we've also got down the other side 4 Bright Lights Swiss chard plants. These are going to get exactly the same treatment. Dig a little hole, firm them in, put the cloche on. When you put the cloche in and over it, the plastic bottle, I'm kind of like screwing it down into the ground, but I'm really watching through the bottle to make sure I'm not catching the plant as I do so. Just in case you was wondering, the reason I leave the lids off each of the bottles is it allows some ventilation and it just stops excess moisture building up, which can cause like damping off of your vulnerable seedlings. So it just lets a bit of air in. It also lets in moisture when it rains. Although it's not raining now, you can see me watering can. A bit of a funny rain shower if that was rain. But when you're not at your plot, it basically means that you don't have to go up every single day just to water. By leaving the lids off, rainwater can get in there. Around this time of year, you can also plant your carrot seeds outside. That enormous clump of chives in the middle of the carrot bed isn't a happy accident. The reason those chives are there are because members of the allium family have a scent that disguises the smell of carrots, which then confuses the carrot root fly, which over the years we've had quite a few crops of carrots destroyed by the carrot root fly. We also find growing them slightly higher off the ground helps, so this raised bed is 2 pallets high, where most of our raised beds are just 1 pallet high. Gives you more depth as well, so you get longer carrots. Now I've wet the soil before I put the carrot seeds on, because they're quite smaller carrot seeds, and then what will happen is once I water them in, if I was to just put the seeds down first and then water, what could happen is the seeds will just end up getting washed away, because they're very small and fiddly. So by wetting the soil first, it gives the seeds something to stick to. Here she is, Deputy Head Gardener Ruby. So the first seeds that Ruby's sowing for me, she's got to earn her pocket money somehow, guys. The first seeds are the purple sun seeds, and in that packet there weren't many at all. We just about had enough to be able to fill that one line, so we've only got 1 line of those. Just watch for the flourish she does at the end once she puts the last seed in. Can't you tell she goes to dance lessons? Ruby's now going along that line, just covering over the seeds with the soil. We only need to be like 1 to 2 centimetres deep. So then after that, we'll pat down the line. There you go, she's patting it down. Because those seeds need to be in firm contact with the soil for when the roots go. Roots won't grow into air pockets, they need to have contact with the soil. And there is the all important label. And I remember to put a date on as well. The next packet of seeds that we opened up was the Nantes variety. We do this row and then she does another row up to the chive plants, and then we carry on the other side of the chive plants, because remember they're in the middle of the bed, and we ended up using the full packet. We've still got the Chantenay Red Cord Freeze to use, but we've got another bed we can grow carrots in. A really good opportunity to learn in gardening is when something doesn't work. Last year our carrot harvest didn't work. The soil that we've prepared lovingly in these beds that we grow carrots in makes an ideal cat litter, so loads of cats had dug and scratched up the seedlings and pooed everywhere. We harvested about 2 carrots out of the entire crop, but they ended up getting thrown away because obviously it had been used as a toilet for cats. So I've learned from that, and because the use of landmines as a deterrent is outlawed both under the Geneva Convention and animal cruelty laws, I'm using a metal shelf off one of those plastic covered mini greenhouse propagators. Genius. Sharing the same ability to get sidetracked as a dad, here's Ruby playing with a ladybird. So there were my allotment garden jobs for April. Thank you for watching.